Hi, and welcome to Telum News Watch, a series where we talk to journalists about the latest news that they are covering. Now, today we have with us Jen Lee from the Straits Times Live, where she covers celebrity and entertainment stories. And of course, this week is Oscar week, and Jen is fresh off covering the Academy Awards. Jen, how was that like? Did it feel particularly different this year, not least because of Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? An Asian movie, a lot of Asian representation there, sweeping many of the major awards.
I was really excited when Michelle Yeoh won because it was a dead heat between her and Cate Blanchett. Like, no one knew up till the last second because they were like getting split between the different guilds. So it was like very exciting. And even though like Everything Everywhere All at Once had a lot of momentum going in, there were some points where you were like, is it gonna sweep the big prize? Because I think before screenplay was announced, a lot of the tech awards, production design and so on, went to All Quiet on the Western Front, which is a war movie. The Academy loves war movies, very, very traditional type of thing that gets awarded. So people were like, is this gonna, is All Quiet on the Western Front gonna be the dark horse that breaks through? So there was a bit of like excitement and a bit of tension, I think, in between.
An event like the Oscars, right? It's so major. It's covered internationally by press all around the world. I want to know, how do you personally and how do you and your team go about covering such a big event like that, and of course, how then can PRs and communications professionals help and work with you better during the season?
There's usually 3 people on the team. So there's John Louis, our film correspondent, who would usually do the big cover story, because he's the film correspondent. So he would do like, a sort of rundown of how the awards went, who were the big winners, were there any surprises. Then I'm usually like tweeting the results on ST Live's Twitter account live. And I'm also covering like the 5 top moments. So I do a little bit more like fun stuff, like, what were like the bits that hit, the jokes that landed well, or certain moments that were exciting. Of course, when something like the slap happens, then sometimes you have to like throw all of that out and be like, okay, we have to write about the slap, and then there's usually another person, and that's Amanda Chai, our style and beauty correspondent, who covers like the fashion so the best dress, worst dress. So that's usually how the coverage goes. And I think like how PRs can work with us, I think first and foremost, like that Monday, just like don't call us. Like, we would not have time to deal with it. But I think
you alone, basically.
Yeah, sort of. But I think if you have sort of insights to offer afterwards, or like interesting follow-ups to do afterwards, I think that can be done in the days following. Like you can, catch on to the news point of the Oscars. The Oscars are the end point to a very, very long award season. It's like, it really starts like very long ago, and people are campaigning all throughout the season to get their movies watched, to get their movies nominated, and to get the win, right? So it's really like a political campaign. So they go to like a lot of events. And like throughout, there's like some sort of through line, and I think some of them like PRs in say like fashion and say like entertainment could benefit from keeping a close eye, because things like for example, this season Cate Blanchett was in the race for Tar, and she wore a lot of like, on her red carpet appearances, a lot of her looks were repeat wears. So basically she was wearing dresses and gowns or clothes that she had already worn before, and she would like, maybe add a little something to it or edit it a little bit for like, PRs. I think that can tie into something like sustainable fashion, which is something that she's really pushing, and so these are good story ideas to watch lah. And of course, like for example, Michelle Yeoh winning, that's a big story. But even if she doesn't win, that sort of like connection to Malaysia, Ipoh, she's an Ipoh girl, what does this mean? So there are like stories to branch out. So there are a lot of things that you can like spotlight during the season from different angles, I think. So like for example, the Daniels, they did a photo shoot with Jennifer Coolidge. The creative directed a photo shoot with Jennifer Coolidge, which was actually photographed by a Singaporean photographer. So that's very interesting.
Len Chai,
yeah. So
I worked with her before. It's amazing.
Yeah. That photo shoot, actually, if you look at it, it kind of tells you a story that the Daniels have been interested in like Japanese, this sort of like Power Ranger stuff for the longest time. So if you're like coming at it from like anime or like cosplay perspective, that can also be a very good jumping off point. Like, look at who these people who used to be super into cosplay or super into like anime or was super into this sort of aesthetic, what are they doing now? Or you can use that as a jumping off point for like people who do props, like because like the way they did the photo show was with like miniatures, so that kind of ties in there, like different angles. Like if you watch the race closely, you watch how people are campaigning, you watch what people are revealing about themselves, there are some news points.
So Jen, apart from writing all of your celebrity and entertainment stories, you also host a podcast.
Yes.
It's called Pop Vultures, right? It's a pop culture podcast by the Straits Times, covering both the Hollywood entertainment industry as well as Asian entertainment, all right? You look at the ins and outs and you do your analyses and everything like that. For someone who follows both sides so closely, both East and West, what did Michelle Yeoh's win mean to you? It must have felt like the best of both worlds to you, right? And how was it?
Definitely, it was a big moment, As I said, like it was a dead heat, right, between Cate Blanchett and Michelle Yeoh. So no one knew up to the very last moment. You could guess. But I was watching, and when like it was announced it was her name, I was like fist pumping. It was a really great moment. I mean, like, regardless of what you think of her performance or what you think of the film in particular, what are the chances of, another Asian woman breaking through all these barriers and getting this role of a lifetime and having the chance to promote it on the world stage and it being like, critically acclaimed. So it was a big moment, of course. I think that also brought out some sort of discourse, I think, amongst like Asian diaspora, because Everything Everywhere All at Once, it is a very, very Asian American story. It is not, it's Asian American. And to say that it's Asian, I think it takes away something from it. It is a story of people who, like, it's a story of immigrants. So I think there is some tension between that and like people who have spent their whole lives in their home country, in like not the culture kids. Like, we are Asian, we grew up in Asia, or Chinese people who grew up in China, Hong Kong people who grew up in Hong Kong. It hits differently. So I think there's some sort of tension between some people who feel like, what's the big deal, but perhaps they don't feel the same way because they're not Asian American. So there's some tension in the Asian diaspora regarding this movie that is quite interesting, I think.
Last question for you, Jen. Do you personally see any potential like story ideas stemming from the latest Oscars and or this whole award season in general? And are you on the lookout for anything in particular at the moment?
I think definitely there are definitely like story ideas here, especially Michelle Yeoh's win. What does it mean for Ipoh? Like, what do Ipoh people feel about this? Because there is some complicated feelings, I think, in Malaysia, in Malaysians towards her. I think different people perhaps have different point of views or different like political perspectives that color their perspective of her. There's also story ideas of like, diaspora, because Everything Everywhere All at Once is a diaspora story. How do people feel? What's the immigrant story like in different countries? So there's a lot of like human interest stories. Just the fashion alone, there's so much to talk about. Like what I heard, Daniel Scheinert, the award-winning director, one of the Daniels behind Everything Everywhere All at Once, is the director. Apparently his outfit was from like a thrift store. Like, he got his Oscar outfit from his hometown in Alabama, where like apparently they sell unclaimed baggage. You know how like at the airport there'll be like unclaimed baggage? And then like that store sells like clothes from unclaimed baggage. And he went back to Alabama and like found clothes from this store. So his entire Oscar outfit was from this store. So again, like the idea of thrifting, it's all very interesting things, especially in terms of fashion. I think for fashion, for style, for beauty, this is a very good season to, have news point to tie into. Yeah.
That's awesome. So a lot of food for thought and a lot to unpack there. And I feel like, unfortunately, we don't have enough time, but please do another podcast episode. In fact, I feel like I just recorded one with you.
I know, we used to be co-hosts, so it's very fun.
Yeah, this is so fun, and thank you so much for sharing again, Jen. I always like enjoy your insights, and I can't wait to hear and read more from you.
Yes, thank you so much.